Right, time to take a look through the international press, starting with coverage of the French election, Alison.
Yeah, Rochelle, I thought we'd start. There are a couple cartoons today in the Arabic press. So we can take a look at one from the pan-Arabic paper based in London, Al Arab. There we see, this is sort of an endorsement of Emmanuel Macron. We could interpret it that way. We see 2 voting boxes and a bird's nest, so kind of the idea of France's future is waiting to hatch. And that hand is sliding its ballot into the box on the left, which says Macron. There's another pan-Arabic newspaper also based in London, Al Arabi Al Jadid, and they are emphasizing that this election could really determine France's future in the EU. So there we see another ballot box, and that one is having a tug of war with itself over staying with the EU and choosing to exit, and that exit also happens to be over a cliff.
Okay, Alison, an American paper is looking at the importance of the French election to African Americans.
Yeah, this is an article from the website The Root. That's a site that looks at politics and culture from a Black perspective in the U.S. And this writer points out that France is the #1 European tourist destination for Black Americans, and that Paris also has historical significance for a lot of Black artists. The writer James Baldwin lived in Paris for a long time. And the writer of this article interviews a TV presenter for France's version of Black entertainment channel BET, and she says that it's really hard to know actually what to expect of race relations under Emmanuel Macron, but if Marine Le Pen wins the election, that would be a continuation of the state of emergency and the risk of police brutality, which would be very bad for non-white people here in France.
Okay, right. Let's move on to the big story out of the U.S. today. The Republicans passing their health care bill in the House of Representatives.
Yeah, mixed reactions in the U.S. press, as you can imagine. The conservative paper, the Wall Street Journal, calls it a giant step toward better health care. The paper says in its editorial that this shows the Republicans, quote, can hold a governing majority despite unprecedented media hostility. And the Wall Street Journal really takes left-wing media to task, and in particular for saying that this bill won't make it through the Senate. They say, quote, reporters who think it's doomed should get off of Twitter and make some calls.
Well, meanwhile, it's a very different story in the left-wing New York Times.
Yeah, they call it a Trumpcare disaster. They say that Republicans criticize Democrats for rushing the Affordable Care Act through, and now in a display of breathtaking hypocrisy, those are their words, Republicans have passed a bill that would strip 24 million Americans of health insurance. Now, this editorial lays out the criticisms of the bill, several of which are also illustrated in cartoons today that I pulled out. One from the LA Times speaks to the idea that it would cut protections for people with pre-existing medical conditions. So in this cartoon, we see a Republican lawmaker leaning over a newborn baby saying, born with a pre-existing condition, were you? Well, don't expect us healthy, God-fearing citizens to pay for your bad choice. Now, Republicans, we should note, though, do say that the bill would maintain coverage for people with pre-existing conditions. That system will just vary by state. So at this point, it's a little bit unclear. Another criticism of the new bill is that it would defund Planned Parenthood, which is the organization that provides free reproductive health care to low-income women. That criticism is illustrated in this cartoon from the Washington Post. We see Donald Trump here and Paul Ryan lifting up the hospital gown of a female patient, and that those words there reference some of Trump's earlier comments about taking liberties with women's private parts.
That's charming. Alison, we're going to end with a spin through the front pages in the UK. Reaction to Prince Philip's announcement that he will be retiring from royal duties later this year.
Yeah, and he's really put in his time. He's turning 96 next month. And we can see on the front page of the Times, Duke retires rather than grow frail in public. They say he's really starting to feel the strain of his royal duties. He's also known for his sense of humor and kind of making gaffes sometimes in public. And actually, the other day when someone told the prince he was sorry he was standing down, Prince Philip replied, well, I can't stand up much longer. And that's a quip that we've seen a lot of media take today on their front page. We can see on the front page of a magazine published by left-wing paper, The Independent. I can't stand up much longer. There it is. Meanwhile, a lot of tabloids are rendering homage to the prince. The Daily Mail, we can see on their front page, they say, the nation salutes you, sir. And finally, the pun of the day goes to Metro News. You can see their headline is, I've had my fill.
Okay, great. So, Alison, thank you very much for that. Alison Sargent there with the International Press Review.